Fitzgerald. This is Dubai Works, where we interview the business leaders making a difference in this great city.
That business with scalability was very interesting to me.
I like building something that has legacy.
This episode is sponsored by DIFX. DIFX is a cross-asset trading platform that is creating a new financial order by bridging traditional trading with cryptocurrencies. A platform to trade traditional assets like forex, indices, metals, etc. alongside cryptocurrencies. With DIFX, traders can choose from several instruments to create their very own exotic pairs like BTC and gold, or Ethereum and Apple, or Litecoin and crude oil, and so much more. Its unique ecosystem gives traders an option to trade on both their revolutionary MT5 platform and custom-built spot exchange, all while having a fully insured crypto wallet. It's now available on Android and iOS for you to download. Every now and again on this podcast, I hear of an entrepreneur or an idea that I've never heard of before. I might not be alone here, but what Pishu and his co-founder are doing with North Ladder is really innovative. It's a solution the opposite to what you would think. So instead of saying that people are going to be buying more mobile phones, therefore we should manufacture phones, they're actually doing the opposite. They're trying to provide a carbon, a circular economy solution to recycling and put cash back in people's pockets for recycling and things like that. So it's really interesting, very experienced guy and team, and they have a really good story to tell. So enjoy the interview. Welcome back to another episode of Dubai Works Business Podcast. To my left is Pishu Ganglani, the co-founder of North Ladder. North Ladder is the world's first secure trading platform that connects customers looking to sell pre-owned electronics to a global network of buyers. We'll be talking a lot about the carbon footprint and sustainability in financial trading, and a lot about how North Ladder came about. So starting there, good morning, Pishu.
Hi, good morning, Richard.
Thanks for joining the show.
Great introduction, thank you.
Yeah, so we were having a nice conversation before we jumped on air.
Yeah.
You obviously know the region quite well. So how did you end up here, and how did North Ladder come about?
Well, so I've lived in this part of the world, in Dubai, actually, for almost 30 years now. So this is home. This is home for me and my family. And North Ladder was something that came out from a few studies we were doing on what would happen with essentially the circular economy and the carbon footprint of a lot of the electronics that we work with. We were looking at trading electronics, and what we discovered was a few stats in the process that completely blew us away. So I was just updating this, for our conversation. I've got a study here from McMaster's University in Canada, and they've done quite a bit of in-depth research, quite groundbreaking, on both the carbon footprint and the overall CO2 impact of the technology industry. So they were looking at devices such as, mobile phones, laptops, tablets, desktop computers, etc.
Yeah.
Most of us, when we look at an innocent little phone, the view is, how much impact can a little phone have, right? And that's what we all sort of believe till you actually look at the numbers. So, if you get a bit of an idea very, very quickly, just looking at smartphones, laptops, tablets, desktops, etc., currently contribute anywhere between 3 and 3.5% of the total global footprint of CO2 emissions. But it's expected to go to 14% by 2040. At 14%, this is more than half the carbon footprint of the entire transportation industry. It's mind-boggling when you think of that.
So transportation, not just cars, planes.
Cars, planes, the entire industry put together, this would be more than half, that amount, which really makes it a very, very large, impact on us. So some of the stats, if you look at, let's just look at smartphones for a moment. This little device that we all carry around, generally one, sometimes two on your body. Last year, this is the 2020 data, there are 2.8 billion people in the world who have smartphones. So this is only 35% of the world's population, right? 65% still don't have mobile phones.
Wow.
But this 2.8 billion people have approximately 8 billion mobile phones, in the world. This is roughly 2.6, phones per person.
Yeah.
Now, if you stop someone on the street, it's not like they've got 2.5 phones on them, right? It's just that you've got phones left over at home that you haven't used and you haven't taken care of. And if you look at this 8 billion phones in the world. Last year, the CO2 emission from these phones represent about 125 million tons of CO2. And it's just completely staggering. But 80% of that comes from the manufacturing.
That's the 4% you mentioned.
Yeah,
That's 3.5%.
The 3 yes, that's 3.5%, absolutely.
Okay,
right?
so it's 100, okay.
125 million tons,
Wow.
carbon emission coming out of just cell phones. Right?
I'm a little bit uninitiated in this. How does that work? Like how
I mean, is the phone actually giving out carbon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what most of us think, right? So, no, that's a very good question, Richard. 80% of the carbon emission comes from the manufacturing of the phone.
Yeah.
Because these phones use a lot of what we call rare earth materials, gold, tungsten, cobalt. And there's an entire industry based on mining this just for the phone industry, right? So this is where a lot of your carbon footprint. So by the time you buy your new phone, 80% of the carbon footprint's already out in the manufacturing.
Yeah.
Right? And the staggering, the real kicker, if you want to call in all of this, is less than 1% of these phones ever get recycled. So 99% of these phones are lying around in our drawers, are going to end up in the bin, end up in a landfill. And that's when the problem really starts, because you've got, toxic chemicals, battery acids, etc., that are going to leak back into the earth. And this is a giant problem. And again, only 35% of the world now. And this is 2020, I assume, is a little bit still pre-COVID information. You can imagine, how many more devices are coming up since then.
Yeah, fascinating stats and very topical at the moment. So where does North Ladder come in, and are you really focused on the circular economy in that respect?
So we were looking at both. So I and my co-founders all have sort of a financial background. We come from financial industries. And we were looking at the ability of people to monetize these assets. So here's the silver lining in the whole picture. Most people, on average, if you look at the UAE, most people have anywhere between 5,000 and 7,000 dirhams worth of assets, electronic assets, unused, lying around in their house.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't feel that expensive because you don't know its real value, right? But it's sitting and lying around. Our view was, if there was a way to monetize that, that would be phenomenal. Because if you go back to the problem, and before we even get into North Ladder, the question I would have is, well, how do you solve this? Right? I mean, this is clearly bigger than we thought. Well, there's 2 or 3 things you could do. One, of course, is sell it, recycle it, let someone at least be able to use it, so you don't have to manufacture another device. The other one is use it a lot longer. So on average in the world, people update their phone every 3 years. But in this part of the world, we update it every 2 years.
Or their Kindle, or their TV, or whatever.
Well, exactly. Right?
Their
No,
iPad.
mobile phones only. I'm only talking mobile phones, right?
Yeah.
So we tend to, in this part of the world, replace it, every 2 years. The UAE has anywhere between 10 and 12 million devices at any moment. KSA is roughly 5 times that amount, right? So 50 million devices.
Okay.
We're replacing them every 2 years, right? So the first advice would be don't, right? Hold it a little longer. I'm very proud to show you this, but here you go. This is a BlackBerry of mine.
Oh, wow.
4 years old. Most people haven't even seen a BlackBerry, or they don't know it still exists. So use them as long as you can.
Amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
Second one is, in cash it, sell it. So why don't people do that?
Yeah.
Well, that's where the problem starts.
Yeah.
How do you do that? You could troll the back streets of Satwa and Dera and try and find some of the smaller shops. On KSA, you go to, Marsalat Market in Riyadh, and that's not easy. Or, there's the joy of listing it online, and then you've got 50 people calling you at all times of the day bargaining with you. And then you've got a stranger turning up to your house to do the whole hostage exchange of cash versus, the device. And here's another problem most people don't realize: the data on your phone. Right? We think that, hey, we'll just do a factory reset in a format, and you're done. Well, think again.
Really?
Professional data wipe services will do what's known as a triple wipe. It takes almost an hour and a half to really wipe the data off your phone. And what they do is they format the storage, fill it up with data, format that again, fill it up with data, and do it a third time. And only then they're kind of sure that, your data is gone.
Yeah.
Otherwise, our whole life is on the phone.
Yeah, photos, contacts, messages,
identity
apps,
theft,
passwords.
Misuse of that data. So most people don't realize that.
Yeah.
So these are the reasons. It's therefore no wonder you leave it in the phone. It's not out of laziness, that you leave it in the drawer. It's just too much hassle. So that's kind of where North Ladder comes in.
It's a big problem to solve.
Well, yeah, we've worked on it for a few years, and I'm very excited. We've got a phenomenal, leadership team with us, working on this, and it's taken a few years to get this right. A lot of it came from our experience and our background in the financial markets, and I'll tell you where this comes in. if you think of it from a user's point of view, I need 3 things for me to sell my phone. Number one, I'd like to get the best price in the market. I don't want to go haggling and bargaining with people. Number 2, I want it to be convenient. I don't want to risk people coming home. I want this to be fast and easy. And number 3, I need it to be secure, right? So that my data, is safe. So the way we do that is our pricing comes from quite a unique model. It's actually a world first that we've developed. It's what we call a reverse pricing engine.
Okay.
This is effectively how NASDAQ works, right? So we've got in the UAE now 200 plus stores. These small shops we talked about, 200 of them roughly, are continuously competing with each other to give the highest price for your phone before you even list it.
Yeah.
Right? So that's how the stock market works. That means you can go to our website now and you can get a price in roughly 2 seconds.
Okay.
Right? Because you'll get the top price right away. So that takes care of the highest price.
Can I just ask, is this someone who's, I'm selling an iPhone, if I buy the iPhone 13 or the new BlackBerry,
right?
And I
wish there was a new BlackBerry.
and I have a leftover one.
Yes.
Typically, I think that someone else might use that for cheaper. They buy a second-hand iPhone.
Yes.
So for a few hundred dirhams or whatever. But is there another market out there where people are buying things that aren't with the intention of using it?
As in recycling?
Yeah.
Are you referring to? Well, there is a large and thankfully growing market, for recycled and refurbished, phones.
But typically these 200 buyers are going to use that phone as a phone.
No, so these are 200 stores who are continuously buying. They're refurbishing it, upgrading it, and they're exporting it. So Dubai has now become actually one of the largest re-export hubs for mobile telephones. I think we recently beat Hong Kong. So these phones then get exported after being refurbished to places like Eastern Europe, Africa, other parts of the Middle East, and even used here. So there's a huge sort of demand for it. In fact, the interesting thing is if you speak to the market, they are supply constrained because we don't give them the phones. So they've got a lot of demand for it. So actually, this is a very lucrative market.
Interesting.
To get into.
So it could be that some of the billions, the 5 billion or so that don't have smartphones, that they will use recycled second-hand phones in Africa or wherever.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the way our lives are moving, it's no longer nice to have.
Yeah.
Right? So the moment this is only going to grow. There's no other way for it to go.
Yeah.
The idea is reduce the need to manufacture more devices and extend the life.
Interesting.
So coming back to the pricing, our website is the equivalent of you visiting 200 stores and trying to get them to compete to give you a price. So you get the highest price right away. From a convenience point of view, you can do one of 2 things. You can visit any of our centers, and we've got a number of them opening up all the time. So there'll be one near you. You can visit there, and you're out. Sid, who manages our sort of marketing, loves to say it, but you're gone in 60 seconds, right? Turn in, you check the phone, you get the cash, and you're done.
Yeah.
Or you can even have the convenience of someone coming home, and this is one of our people coming home, picking up the device and paying you cash right there. Okay. So that takes care of the convenience part.
Yeah.
And all of our phones go through a full sort of white drive service that we offer to make sure that the devices are cleaned, before they're sold out. So that takes care of your security and risk side of it.
Pricing, convenience, security, all done.
Right, all done through. And because we are market driven, you are always getting the market best price, right? So we have no incentive to lower the price ourselves because our fees also work off the top of the price.
Volume,
absolutely.
Yeah, the higher. So just a question: what you've identified is something that wasn't obvious to me and might be obvious to many is kind of a market opportunity. These devices are sitting in the home.
Yes.
Millions of them. Well, why wouldn't you just be a exporter? Why wouldn't you just, if you wanted to make money, why wouldn't you just be a middleman that sort of collects all these for yourselves? Why are you deciding to be the enabler or the facilitator?
Thank you. That's actually a great question. If you went in today to a lot of or actually I should say if you went in 6 months ago to a lot of the stores in Dubai, they would offer you a price to trade in, and you're getting pennies to the dollar for what it's worth. Your whole point is, whatever, it's better than leaving it around. Go ahead, give me the 200-300 dirhams and, take the phone that I bought for 3,000 dirhams and give me the new one.
They're kind of ripping you off, but
they actually, it's not them. It's that they're selling it into wholesalers.
Yeah.
Now, if you think of the life cycle of a phone, a wholesaler buys it. They refurbish it. They then sell it to a distributor who then exports it to another distributor in another country who then goes to a small dealer. At the end, the phone has to turn up to what we call the last mile dealer. If you think of where secondhand phones are purchased, they're generally in these smaller stores. So there are 4 or 5 layers from the time they buy it from you to the time it reaches there. And every layer needs its fee. What we do is we've jumped straight to the last mile dealer and said, you give us the price. Now, whilst these guys are not going to buy 1,000 devices, they'll buy 50 or 100 a month at the most. Having 200 or 300 of them on your platform now builds a very large demand base.
Okay.
But you're getting the highest price because you're bypassing all of the dealers.
Okay.
And that was exactly what we wanted to do. We built this marketplace because we know from our financial markets experience, the only way you will ever get a market price is if you have competition and transparency. And this market has always been intransparent. You never knew what your phone was worth.
Okay.
And now you do, because they all compete. So if you think of it, when a guy puts a price, he knows he's the top of the book, and everyone knows that's the top price, all the other competitors. The moment they beat them, everyone knows that, hey, this is no longer the top of the book. So they're continuously sort of competing to get you the best price.
So interesting. So you've kind of created a marketplace, and there's one person on one side and one on the other. In that respect, then, I as a user, can I log onto your platform and put my device up for sale? Or is that what happens?
You get a price in 2 seconds, 3 seconds. You don't even need to put it up. So we don't need photos. We don't need you to list anything. We don't need any of your history.
Yeah.
All you go there is say, this is my model. This is the condition. You'll get a price, straight away. Turn up to a store and pick up your cash.
Okay. That's interesting.
What we've also done, that's why I said, when we were talking about trading in your phone 6 months ago, now we've got roughly the large retailers that we're talking about. We've got roughly 150 stores who now use our platform to give you a trade-in price. So if you walked into a large retailer and you said, I want to buy a new phone, do you have a trade-in service?
Interesting.
Most of them are now served through this platform because it's in their interest. They give you the highest price. And when we say highest, we're talking 70 to 90% more than what you would have got from the wholesaler.
Wow.
It's a significant increase in value.
Amazing. So that's your B2B layer, and they have a dashboard, and
and what they'll do, so you'll walk into a store, you'll say, listen, I want to give my old phone in. They'll go, fine, this is its value. Are you happy? You click a button, you get a voucher, use that to trade it in and buy whatever you need.
Smart, because they haven't built out their own system. So
no, and even if they did, they don't get the access to the market. And they want that because it's in the store's interest that you get the highest value.
Yeah.
Your propensity to upgrade to a new phone.
Interesting. And because they're not the market. The market is a smaller store because they're not refurbishing. They're buying the new ones.
Correct. They're only interested in selling you the new ones. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's why the voucher thing works.
Correct.
And also that's not good for your thesis because you don't want manufacturing to increce. You want to slow it down. That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. That's why when people ask me, why do you have an old broken phone? I go, well, that's how I'd like to run it. It's been 4 years now. So
yeah, amazing, fascinating. So it's really, it's really nice to have such a fresh concept and an idea. I've learned a lot already. So talking a little bit on North Ladder, so what's the sort of investment that you needed, and what's the regulation, to have stores as well as a digital platform? How did you go about that in Dubai?
So the interesting thing is we are what you would call a asset light model.
Yeah.
Right? We don't own any of these devices. We only buy what already. So we'll only buy your phone because someone else is ready to buy it and has put a price for it. So we're literally just picking it up, delivering it, and we make the cut in the middle. And we've used, rather than build our own footprint of stores and services, we've actually used existing stores, because if you look at it from the store's point of view, if you turn up to give your phone in order to collect the cash, or you turn up to trade, your footfall for them, they actually want you to come into the store. So we've kind of worked off that, and that's a faster way to grow and scale up.
So what are some of the stores that I could do a North Ladder exchange in?
You could, so if you wanted to do a trade-in, an upgrade, you could go to Carrefour, you could go to Lulu, you could go to, Emax, and a lot of these, and we're adding stores, all the time.
And to get cash?
If you get cash, we've also got a number of centers that have opened up. A lot of these are either small shops or networks that work in shopping malls. So there's a decent chance that, at least in Dubai, with our transport system being phenomenal, there's a decent chance there's a place next to you less than 5-10 minutes away.
Yeah, amazing.
And then you walk in and that's it, cash in 10 minutes.
Very convenient. Other than having a keen sense of the problem the planet is facing, are there incentives for you related to the carbon footprints kind of pledges that countries have been making. Was there an incentive to provide this type of solution business-wise?
Well, it's actually fantastic doing this in a place like Dubai, because it's quite inspiring to see that the government of the UAE has made a statement focusing on the circular economy and looking at recycling as a big move. So that's been very helpful for us. We've had conversations with some of these sort of ministries that are looking at it. So very, very supportive. They recognize its value. They recognize the impact of doing this. One of the other things we've done, and again, we're looking for ways for people to not trash the stuff, right? So our catchphrase is, cash it before you trash it, right? So we've even tied up with a lot of charitable organizations here saying, if your donors donate old laptops, mobiles, and if you think of large corporations especially, right, they go through these old cycles where you've got to replace all the phones and the laptops.
Yeah.
And data is such an important thing for them that they'd literally rather destroy it than give it out, right? The risk is too big.
Sure.
But if we built the whole infrastructure and they donated that to the charitable institution, we help them, cash it. So yeah, there's lots of avenues where
corporate as well as personal.
Yeah.
It's probably another millions of devices, because they write them down, they depreciate the assets, and at some point there's no
book value, but it's still worth it. So if you don't want the cash, at least donate it. Let someone get some value out of it.
Yeah, interesting, fascinating. Because obviously in the media last week there was that the COP26 in Glasgow, and there's a lot of pressure on not pressure, but there's a lot of attention on what countries are doing. But not, and then countries then can, which is why my last question was about incentives. Countries can then decide on incentives that trickle down and then into the capitalist world that we live in terms of entrepreneurs. But what's the sort of, working the other way around is your story, right? Because you're doing it from the ground up. You're doing it from a kind of an entrepreneur point of view, and you're not doing it from let the countries do what they're doing and their pledges, but you're kind of doing it in the startup approach of like, here's a problem.
Ground level,
yeah. Like, here's a problem, here's something that's sort of, it's fascinating. You're not just looking at carbon emissions, you're looking at the number of devices that will be in the world. So rather than manufacturing new phones, someone might look at those stats and go, okay, there's 2.5 or 3.5 billion have smartphones. Therefore, another 3 billion will have smartphones by 2040. So let's make more phones. But you're doing the opposite.
Please don't. No, absolutely.
But you're doing the opposite. But you're actually doing the opposite in the way that it's still a business, still a viable solution.
Oh yes, very much so. I mean, the emerging refurb and recycle industry, especially for smartphones, is a multi-billion-dollar industry already. And growing significantly fast. And again, it's just been a supply-constrained industry. Right, with the only 1%, doing the recycling. The moment that goes up, you're definitely able to meet the demand. And that's what we're hoping, to be able to achieve. The other element is this is a global industry. So here's the dream, if you want to call it that. We always sit there as a leadership team thinking about, what's our North Star. The idea would be someone in the US, walks into a store and says, I wish to recycle the phone, gets the highest price from someone for a dealer in Saudi Arabia, instantly is able to complete the deal right there, get the cash. We take care of the logistics to ship it right over. And the guy in Saudi has picked up the phone, because the guy in Saudi is probably going to pay a much higher price than any dealer in the US. So the beautiful thing about international markets is you compete at the global level, right? Not at your city level. So our it's not a dream, actually. The plan is to build a global network that's able to do this. And again, because we've seen this done and it works perfectly well in the financial markets, we're essentially replicating how the financial markets work. The fact that, you can buy an American stock paying in dirhams while you're sitting, on a beach somewhere in Sri Lanka, only happens because of that. So that's sort of what we want to build.
But there is one difference, that the product does need to be shipped.
The physical, yes. The good news is that's already solved. The mobile phone market is already global. And these things are being shipped now. It's just that there are way too many, sort of middlemen in it. And that's what you disrupt.
It's fascinating, talking about Dubai as a export market is a trend that has come up on this podcast in different industries, whether it's manufacturing houses, portable houses, or whether it's sofas. And that leads to sort of the supply chain kind of logistics
Yes.
problem that we're having in the moment. But it's positive for Dubai in that the world, it's really a positive sign for the GDP and the economy in the UAE.
Yeah.
But what's your sort of view where we are? I guess there's two macro trends, or two ones that I'm aware of coming out of the pandemic. One is an energy crisis, and the other one is a container crisis, or
logistics.
Things are kind of stalled, and people can't get supplies.
So we were very fortunate that way. So very recently, one of our colleagues from McKinsey, who we knew very well, has come on board, a gentleman called Mihin Shah. Now, Mihin Shah was actually head of logistics for the Landmark Group globally.
Okay, wow.
He's one of the experts, I'd say in the world, but very definitely in the region.
Yeah.
One of the experts on global logistics, and he's sort of joined us, full time recently. So we're very excited.
And they've done obviously they've had a lot of their passes had to deal with a lot of retail, a lot of goods, but then they built this amazing facility in Dafsa as well, which is their own sort of last mile unit, which is really futuristic. Yeah.
And Mihin was one of the architects of that, so we're excited. I mean, the joke we have internally is, Mihin's probably forgotten more about the logistics world than I ever remember in my lifetime. so it's fantastic to have.
So he's forgotten, but that's interesting. But from your point of view, so he will be looking after how you export your phones, is it?
Yeah, he's sort of building out. He's going to be again the principal architect to build out this, because we realize up front. Yes, it's great. So far in the UAE, it's been phenomenal, but this is a global industry and a global opportunity, and the impact is global. So you would have to get your logistics right. I mean, that's the key thing, which is why that's the focus.
Do you think that the current logistics problem is a hangover from the pandemic, or do you think we're looking at something more sustained and more serious?
Well, we all hope it will ease, and we think it will. What has probably also happened is the demand for logistics has gone up. Even if you look at micro last mile delivery, right? I mean, the demand has gone up, and whenever the demand goes up, generally there might be a bit of a lag, but the industry catches up.
Yeah.
So whilst you're probably going to feel a bit of a squeeze in the next couple of years, the industry is going to build. It's going to get stronger and smarter. So we're going to find far better ways for logistics to work. I don't think it'll ever stop.
Yeah.
We're actually quite, optimistic about the future of how logistics will work.
Interesting, because it is fascinating. A lot of the business narrative around Q4 in terms of gifting and things like that, and busier businesses, comes down to, in the digital world, like the cost of travel, the cost of Amazon, the cost of shipping and things like that. And it's fascinating. And we think it's just a seasonal thing, but obviously that's accelerated.
Yes.
And now everyone, everything's global.
Exactly. The more global you go, seasonality just disappears. Right?
Yeah. So we want things physically so fast, and so many things are happening around that, right?
Yeah.
Like it's funny, silly anecdote, but I bought my TV blew, right? And so I have an old Philips TV, and I'm thinking about how I can recycle it, but it blew a few weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, and I bought a new Samsung device, and someone came to help last night to put it up on the wall.
Yeah.
And my mum was there, and he left because we didn't have the right devices. And I kind of forgot about it, and she said, "Oh, I've already bought the bracket." And she was like, "Amazon!" I'm like, excited that she could do it so fast. I said, "You probably should have waited for the
guy to come
sale or whatever." But the excitement to be able to do something so fast, to get the bracket, and then bang bang, like it's just really fast, isn't it?
Yeah,
but like, there's no thought of where's that coming from.
I know. It's like you order food and he's 20 minutes late, and you're going, "Oh my goodness, it's been 20 minutes." And just think of what's going on here. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Someone cooks food for you and delivers it to you nice and warm and hot.
Yeah, exactly.
In 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And and even in that industry, you could look at what are the problems, and you've kind of tend to look at the technology industry and kind of try and find a solution.
Yeah.
So super interesting. What's the kind of roadmap for you and for North Ladder now?
Well, we've broken ground for our operations in Saudi Arabia. That's been obviously because of COVID. It took longer than we'd planned to go. We're very excited with Saudi. It's apart from being a larger market. The excitement on the ground and I've been going to Saudi off and on for the last 30 years. So
Yeah.
I feel it.
What was the first thing you did there? You kind of told me, but tell me again.
It was you landed in and it was such a pleasant surprise. The immigration officer was a young lady who looked up and smiled at you and said, "Welcome to Riyadh." And I was, oh my gosh, that's amazing. But the enthusiasm and the optimism on the ground is palatable. You can feel it, right?
Yeah.
The average person you speak to is, we're very excited. We know where we're going to go. It's has a significant amount of investment coming into it as well. So I think you're looking at at almost a second wave emerging economy.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Coming out of Saudi. That's the feeling I get anyway. Very enthusiastic.
But is it different than when you were there 30 years ago? I think you said you did something with the financial markets.
Yes. So our bit of history. So one of my co-founders, a gentleman called Ricky Husseini. So Ricky and I launched 27 years ago. He hates for me to tell him the age because he feels like we're too old. But about 27 years ago, Ricky and I launched the world's first automated trading system in Saudi Arabia for FX swaps, for foreign exchange swaps. I was with Reuters at the time. Ricky was with Standard Chartered Bank. And we kind of, set that. And that was our real introduction to what a marketplace can do, right? Opening transparency, opening competition, creating transparency. And that just caused the markets, to take off. And we saw that happen firsthand. So this to us is a bit of, I know it's a completely different industry, but the principles are exactly the same.
And did you see, so was that related to the Saudi markets, to the Tadawul, and is that what happened
No,
later?
so foreign exchange swaps, and we can get into that. FX swaps or at that time were traded amongst a few banks in Saudi, London, and the US, right?
Okay.
So it was theoretically global, but a small group of people who were trading it, but working through middlemen.
Yeah.
And the cost was very high, transparency was quite low, and therefore the traded volumes were not as big as they could be. The moment we brought in this sort of transparency and competition, that just took off completely, and just the FX foreign exchange markets.
Interesting, fascinating. So Saudi is an interesting one, obviously, and the environment that you describe now, the welcome, the palpable sort of excitement.
Yes.
So how do you approach that? Because I think by entering Saudi separately to here is definitely something that is needed, right? Like people assume with a digital world, if you've got a product that's got a brand that's known in the UAE, then automatically that's a rite of passage in Saudi, but it's not the case.
Not really, yes. I mean, you're absolutely right. Like anything else, there's never a cookie cutter answer.
Yeah.
Right? And we are very clear that the Saudi need is going to need a Saudi solution. On the one hand, the need is ubiquitous, right? Everybody has these things, wants to sell them, wants to get the best price on how to do it. How we actually execute it, who we partner with, these are things that you kind of customize to the Saudi market. We're working through that, sort of right now. So, watch this space. Hopefully, if we can get on your show in a few months, we'd love to come and tell you how that's turned out.
Yeah, amazing. It would be good to follow. We actually launched a media business there 4 years ago. And I had that similar experience, just seeing the young Saudi media graduates wanting to work in this type of a business. And, it is amazing, but you can't expect everything overnight. You kind of,
Although they seem to be doing it, which is like unbelievable.
Yeah.
And also the view you get on the ground is phenomenally entrepreneurial. I mean, on every street corner, you're going to see someone trying something, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a store, but they're all indigenous sort of ideas that they're building and running with. So I walk away with the sense that I think the average person in Saudi is very, very entrepreneurial.
Yeah. And what's your view then on the sort of economies in the region, sort of post-pandemic, sort of even Arab Spring, even the last 10 years? Like, is there any pattern recognition? Is there any way of saying that this is a market that will emerge, or is there any kind of sense of that, or is it a country by country situation?
It's a
big question.
That's an economist's question.
Yeah. As an entrepreneur,
I'll be blunt, and I'd love to sound like an economist, and I might be trained for it, but we are laser focused on the problem we're trying to solve.
Fair enough.
We feel we've got absolutely the right capabilities as far as leadership and technology is concerned. We know that our technology is groundbreaking. It is unique. And it's because we brought the solutions from a completely different industry. If you were within the electronics industry, you wouldn't think of, let me go figure out how banking works. I mean, I'll give you an example. The ability for the price for your phone to come from a shop in Abu Dhabi, and the fact that you can walk down to a store, on Sheikh Zayed Road below you and exchange it straight away, involves quite a bit of, not just logistics, but settlement and financial capabilities. And these are the things that we built because that's how the financial industry works.
Yeah.
So if you looked at it purely from the technology world, the solution may not have come out that way. We've gone, it's not out of the box, it's another planet, and brought that down. So we're very focused on where that works out. Your question on the economy, I'd have to tell you it's more personal, but I'm very enthusiastic. And we've lived here for 30 years. And the beautiful thing about Dubai is I love the way it reinvents itself every 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like what you say about the UK weather, right? You don't like it, wait for a while.
Yeah.
It'll change.
It's better. Not Ireland, but it's always rains.
Yeah, we're going there for a holiday, so.
Oh, nice. Well, hopefully, inshallah, it'll be nice for you then. But yeah, I think fair enough. That's a good answer, but also, an entrepreneur does need not luck, but it needs an entrepreneur, obviously in a capitalist world, needs sort of good economy, right? Yes.
So there. If you think about it, as a startup, as any startup in any industry, there's 2 or 3 things that you really need, right? Today, especially. Number one, you need a supportive government, and we really are fortunate to be in this part of the world, both UAE and Saudi. There's a lot of focus on helping startups, grow and helping them not just in terms of giving them money, but the way the regulatory environment is starting to work, the kind of support that you're getting. We had a few obstacles in Saudi, but it was fantastic. We met the right people. They were very, very understanding, and they're getting the wheels to move, which is very important. The second one is you want a very, very inclusive sort of commercial environment, right? The way you do taxes, the way you actually transfer funds, the way you do a lot of your activities. That needs to become easier and faster, and that's beginning to happen here. You could see that happening, versus some countries where just the multiple layers of taxes alone, you want to sort of forget it, go home and do it again. Right? Here, that's not the case, which is helpful.
Bit of a slow start, though.
It is, but like a lot of things, they've seen what the world has already learned, and you kind of jump it. It's like when some parts of Asia went from they bypassed copper completely and went straight to wireless when it came to telecom.
Yeah.
So here, yes, we might be late, but at least we're bringing the best of what we've seen. Good. We're not going through the learning curve before. What would help is more openness on the ability for you to move things around. We're talking now, it's back to logistics, but it's still the duties and taxes around import and export of assets, etc. It's getting better, but it would be nice if it got there faster, right? Your ability to be able to move this. If you think of a lot of countries, there are barriers to importing and exporting products because they're trying to effectively protect the local industries.
Yeah.
I think once the knowledge comes up that actually this is good for the economy, it's good for both sides. It's not, it might be hurting, one small industry, but overall the economic impact is huge. There's enough experience to tell us that trading blocks all collectively do better.
Yeah.
Right? Even if you go to the EU as an example, the more you open the borders, the more you allow trade to happen, both sides benefit.
Yeah.
Here we've got a few barriers.
Yeah,
right?
and the trading agreements here seem to be by country to country.
Yes.
And not everyone in on the same thing.
Yes. So
different
that,
MOUs and things like that.
Exactly. And there's a different understanding of how it works as well. And we're grappling with that right now, but that would certainly make life a lot easier.
But again, as you mentioned, it seems to be going in the right direction because these conversations are being had.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's absolutely right.
So there was something you mentioned at the start of the podcast, the interview, about the comparison between the transport industry and which is startling that technology. But I don't know if this is a question, but you mentioned 2040, but probably then the transport industry
would have come down and we'd be worse.
But also it would be doubly worse because transport will be technology. Like Tesla is a smartphone in a way, right? It's a smart car, right? And so you're actually compounding the problem. So Will you be recycling Teslas as well?
Well, I'd love to learn how to do that. I'll have to give Elon a call and figure that one out. But no, but you're right. I mean, it's again, you know, I was asked this question recently by someone in my family going, yeah, Dad, it can't be such a big deal. I go, well, listen, every time you stream something on video or send someone an email or a chat, there is a giant power-hungry server somewhere out there working 24/7 to try and make that happen. So the big misconception is because it's a small device, it's a small problem, and it's not.
It's a big problem.
It is, and you're right. I mean, the concept of, hey, we're all going to go electric, yeah, but that's a slightly different problem as well.
Yeah.
So
Yes. So I see there's an entrepreneurial solution for it, but are there other things that you think, are there other smart things you've seen that are helping this problem?
As in around, I truly believe if you think about on the energy side
and electricity and using sorry.
Let me go pull out my PhD very quickly. No, I again, if I sort of bring it down to our industry, what I like very much is that even the refurbish industry is now becoming, two things are happening. Number one, the industry itself is becoming a lot more dependable. So in the past, when you went to buy a second-hand phone, the refurbished guy told you, well, I fixed it, don't worry. You're walking away going, I hope it works, 2 days from now, right? Because my warranty ends the moment I leave the store. Now you've got refurbished players who will give you phones that are refurbished. You almost get the like brand new experience. It's packed very well and you've got a good warranty period, on it. And the second thing that's happening that I'm more excited with is people don't have a problem with this anymore, right? It's actually, very honestly speaking, it's actually cool for you to go in and buy something and reuse it rather than go buy brand new.
Definitely,
And I love that movement. I see this with the younger generation, and you sort of sit there going, that's a fantastic change. So that's got to happen. Energy, we're always going to be hoping for the next breakthrough. We've got to get beyond the battery somehow. Right? Right now, lithium-ion is still pretty much our ceiling, but I'm just forever optimistic. We'll figure it out.
Brilliant.
There's enough people working on it. So.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And especially in this region as well, and in Saudi, they're always looking at solutions. But so, just from a practical kind of Dubai point of view, and in the circular economy, people talk about initiatives in place for single-use plastic, and this is a term you often hear. Not that there's, and people recognize and accept it's a big idea. We never hear of single-use, whatever. What do we call these? Well, phones.
Oh Lord,
we don't hear single-use tech, and so we're not. If you go to recycle at a bank, you might have a plastic or a disposable.
Yeah, you don't have one that says drop your devices over.
Why not?
And by the way, that would, and again, you could go ahead and do that, but unless you were very, very confident of the data, most people would not risk that. I never would.
Data problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Unless you can take 1.5 hours and wipe your phone.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do that.
Yeah. But maybe the North Ladder, as well as being in stores, could have
recycling centers.
Yeah.
That's an interesting idea.
You could be besides where we put our plastic and wine bottles
and set that up.
Like that.
Oh, there you go. Well, my CEO is going to be listening to this. So, thanks for more work, Richard.
No problem. You can put it in your 2022 things to do after your holiday to Ireland. Brilliant. So how do people kind of get involved with North Ladder? How do they, like, if I go home this evening, what's the sort of call to action here?
Well, I do two things. I'd go find that 5,000 dirhams because it's there somewhere. Look at all the devices that you have lying around. Right now, we cover mobile phones, laptops, tablets, smartwatches. All of these things, right? And there's prices for all of them. You could go to our website, www.northladder.com. Sorry, I had to put the sales pitch in there.
No problem.
But go to the website. You would get a price literally in 3 seconds. You'd be able to pick it up and you know what it's worth. So that's the first thing you could do. And the second thing is, if you're looking to buy something new, please take all these devices, go to any of our store partners. They're pretty much most of them now, and go trade them in. At least you'll get cash.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry to throw a name in here, but if you went to a place like, say, for example, Carrefour, you could buy groceries with it, right? You don't have to buy another electronic device. You're getting vouchers to use to shop for anything.
Okay.
Very good. So this is the great thing that I do. The second thing I'd recommend is use them a little longer if you can. This urge to upgrade to the latest model because it's out.
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll change.
Well, Pishu, you've given us a lot to think about. You've certainly given me a lot to think about. Thanks so much, and we'll follow North Ladder. And great story.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming in.
Wow. Well, I said at the start that I learned something new, and I definitely did there. just understanding carbon emissions and all the statistics that Pishu had to share, it was really flabbergasting that, by 2040, mobile phone devices can be half as harmful to the planet as the total transport sector as well. So it's just really interesting, and it's good to know that, as well as government leadership providing incentives and solutions to this, that there's entrepreneurs looking at it as well. So yeah, big thank you to my producers on the Dubai Works podcast, Alibaba and Shahir. Please do subscribe to whichever audio platform you're listening to Dubai Works on. And if you want to listen and watch any of our other shows, go to smashy.tv and subscribe to the channel.